All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, my name is Brad Schiller. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Prompt. We support more students on college admissions essays than any other company in the world. So, we'll work with about 10,000 students this year on well over 50,000 admissions essays. And today we're going to be talking about kind of what we've learned from reviewing tens of thousands of college admissions essays and really talking about like how in particular focused on what does your audience really want? Like what's the purpose of the college application essay? What will colleges find compelling about you? And then kind of helping you think about or identify selecting a topic as well as a little bit on how to structure those essays, okay? Just a bit of housekeeping item, this session is being recorded. If you have any questions, there's this Q&A section at the bottom. Feel free to drop in any questions into the Q&A. We'll have about 5 or 6 minutes at the end of the session to be able to take those. You can also drop them into the chat or chat with each other as we're going through this. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we're gonna go ahead and get started today. But that is kind of the general gist of things. So let's first kind of talk through as I said, today, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of essays in the admissions process, the purpose of the application, kind of the different types of essays that you'll actually need to write, some myths associated with college admissions essays, and actually what traits colleges are looking for in applicants. So I always like to first start by talking about the importance of essays actually in the admissions process, okay? Now, most schools, right, in terms of like application criteria, look at high school grade, like your grades, your standardized test scores, like the types of classes that you're actually taking in school, whether or not it's advanced placement, honors, etc., types of classes. And then the third most important thing is college admissions essays. Now, what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is that what actually ends up happening is that most students are actually self-selecting which universities that they're applying to based off of their grades and test scores and the types of classes that they took. So what that means is that most applicants for a given university have very similar GPAs and test scores, which means that all of a sudden, the most important things are actually what's left, which is actually your story, how this story is actually communicated to the admissions officer, right? What do colleges actually find compelling about you, and what is compelling about you from the perspective of those colleges? And all of these things, college admissions essays, extracurriculars, your interest in the college, letters of recommendation, your interview, are all kind of related to the same category of things, which has to do more with what we call your personal score on the application versus kind of your academic score. So I'll give an example. So back in the day when I was applying to college, I only actually applied to four colleges, and I ended up getting into MIT. But I did get rejected by Stanford and Princeton. And what I found was kind of actually after I looked back on the process and actually after reading my admissions officer's comments on my MIT application, I realized that the things that they highlighted on my MIT application, which were actually related to items that I didn't actually cover in my essays for MIT or actually for other schools. They just so happened to be items that happened to come up in my interview process because I didn't really understand what colleges were looking for in applicants. And we'll go into some more detail as we go through this, and I'll talk a little bit about my personal experiences going through the process as we go. But it's a really important and critical lesson is understanding your audience, understanding like what will they find compelling about you, which is what the bulk of today's session is actually going to be about. So the first thing that we want to talk about is actually what is the goal of the application? Why are you even doing this? And what it comes down to is really one thing. The entire purpose of the application is to prove that you will be successful in college and after you graduate. So let me repeat that. The entire purpose of your application is to prove that you will be successful in college and after you graduate. If there's only one thing you're going to remember from this entire session today, it's this piece of information. Because if you understand this, you will automatically start writing about the right types of things within your application essays. Whereas a lot of times we see students who are not writing about the right things because they're not writing about experiences, things that are about themselves that actually prove that they're going to be successful in college and beyond. So what does this even mean? Well, first of all, proving success means that they want to know that you're going to actually graduate and do well in your classes. Okay, so you're going to show up on campus, you're going to hopefully attend class, you're going to do well in your classes, you're actually going to graduate from that particular college. The second is they want to know that you're going to positively contribute to the school's community in some way. Because a lot of value that students actually get from a given university that they're at is the value that they get from speaking and interacting with other students and other people with other perspectives. The third is that you will actually have a positive impact on whatever you choose to do in the future. So after you graduate, many schools actually measure themselves by their alumni. Okay, and it also doesn't hurt if you make a good amount of money and donate it back to the school. That's helpful for them as well. But they want to know that their alumni are going and having a positive impact on the world, ideally in a lot of different areas. So I'll give you an example. So Harvard, their entire admissions process was actually just revealed last year. I think it might have been 2 years ago now. There was a Supreme Court case that involved Harvard, and they actually had to talk about their admissions process. And one of the criteria that they actually have in the admissions process for undergraduates, like 17 or 18-year-olds, is that this particular student has the chance to have a significant impact on the world. That's actually a criteria that they consider in the admissions process. And so they want to know that, okay, if we have these students come to our school, that they're going to have a positive impact on whatever they're going to do in the future. Finally, the college actually wants to know that they will have a unique opportunity to help you achieve your goals or put you on a path to achieving your goals. This is also really important. So if, for example, you want to be an engineer and you're applying to a school that does not have a very strong engineering program, or not one maybe at all, for the type of thing that you want to do, they may not feel that you're actually a particularly good fit for that school, right? So they may not want you in. At the same time, if you're really excited about robotics and they have a tremendous robotics program, that may actually be very helpful to you, okay? Because this particular college will actually put you on a path to achieving your goals. So they like to know that they can have a unique impact on you. So this is one of the most important and critical lessons. And actually how you're going to prove that you're going to be successful in college and beyond is actually through your experiences to date, which is actually what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But first of all, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the types of essays that you'll write. Now, many of you might already kind of be in the midst of the essay process. If you haven't started, that's okay too. I mean, we've started already working with thousands of students, but we have a lot of students kind of come at the last minute, even a couple of days before the deadline. But there's basically a couple of different types of essays that you'll need to write. The first is what we call the personal statement. You probably know this is the Common App essay. It also can be like the Apply Texas essay or the Coalition App essay. And this is an essay that you use across multiple applications. Therefore, a lot of people give it a lot of importance because one essay works across many schools. However, there's a lot of school-specific supplemental essays. And these, roughly 1,000 or so universities have these, at least one. And most competitive schools have at least one, and sometimes have as many as 7 or more, such as like Stanford or Brown, or like Michigan has 3, for example, that are also just as important as that common application essay or as that personal statement essay for that particular school, because those are questions that you're answering that are very related to what those admissions departments are looking for in the applicants. Okay, so these, we often find a lot of people spend a lot of time on the personal statement part of their application and just that essay because it's used across multiple schools. But in reality, you need to spend just as much time, if not more time, on many of the supplemental essays. And we find that many students, you might be writing as many as 6 essays. Students that are applying to very competitive schools, multiple of them, are writing 30 or more essays kind of across their applications. The most common types of these essays are what we call why this college essay. So like, why are you applying to this college? In other words, why is the college a good fit for you and why are you a good fit for the college? Why this major? So why are you applying to the major that you are in? What makes you interested in that major, and then specifically that major at that school? And then what we call the activity description essay, which is basically describe an activity that you find meaningful to you and why. All right. So that's kind of like the quick overview here. There's a lot of work that may need to be done, but the good news is that as long as you're getting support kind of along the way and along the path and have an understanding of what colleges are looking for, you don't actually need to spend as much time as you may think, which we'll talk about in a bit. And next, we'll talk about a few different myths that we often see associated with college admissions essays. So we often find that students are seeking out examples of essays online, but many of those essays are actually not what you should be following. So you may find an essay that, okay, it got a student into a particular university, but maybe they got in despite of their essay rather than because of their essay. That's number one to consider. Number two is that many times you may be reading the essay, or we often find students read those essays and they pick out different pieces of that essay as being important that are actually the less important items of the essay. So many of the students we see are mimicking things like metaphors and analogies and those types of things within these essays that you might see a good example of online, but that's actually not what's getting the student into the school. What's getting into the school is the power of their content and the power of the experiences that they've had that kind of prove that they're going to be successful in college and beyond, related to 5 critical traits that we're going to talk about next. But here's like 3 really important myths as you're actually thinking about these essays. The first is what I call the myth of the well-rounded student. So many students we find want to come across as being really good at everything on their applications. But what colleges are actually looking for are people who really truly excel at one or a few things. All right, so this might be certain traits such as being really driven, above and beyond a typical student. It might be certain interests in certain subjects. It might be different skills that you may have. What you want to do is you want to focus on these spikes in the application, because what a college is trying to do is they're trying to build a well-rounded class of people who have a lot of different interests in different areas, okay? And a lot of different skills and a lot of different traits, because that builds a well-rounded student body where students can contribute positively to each other. So that's really important. You want to focus in on your strengths. A lot of times it's what we call your personal brand associated with the application. The second is needing to tell your life story. So many of the examples that we see online are basically a regurgitation of the student's kind of life or family history, all right? And this oftentimes is a really critical story for some students, especially students that have had very challenging family experiences in their past. But many students should actually be focusing on something else, such as like your intellectual curiosity or taking the initiative to have a positive impact on any organization that you're a part of. And we're going to talk more in detail about that next, but this is also really important. So many of the examples that you'll see online of great examples of essays are when students have overcome difficult and challenging situations in their family lives or sometimes in their school lives, but that may not be the type of thing that you actually want to write about, all right? And then the third is, it doesn't need to be creative nor thought-provoking. So many essays, and why a lot of students wait and procrastinate to actually write these essays is because they feel like it needs to be like super overly creative, because many of the examples that you see online that like the New York Times and many others uphold as being great shining examples of great essays are actually not necessarily what you may be needing to do or capable of as far as the admissions process goes. So what we really think about is you need a solid essay that really focuses on your content and presenting that content in a very clear and compelling way. Telling me that your mind is like a black hole and sucks in information, guess what? That analogy, that metaphor does not, or metaphors, does not actually prove that you're going to be successful in college and beyond. It has nothing to do with success, actually. And so therefore, those aren't the types of things that colleges are actually looking for in the essays, yet we see so many students are trying to identify those analogies, trying to identify those metaphors to use in their application, or trying to use these overly beautiful descriptive language in the essays. And guess what? That doesn't really matter that much. And we know this because roughly we work with students kind of across all different types of walks of life and spectrum and all of that sort of stuff. And we actually find 9 in 10 students that we work with who are applying to top 50 universities are actually getting into one or more of those top 50 universities, okay? And we also find that students who are below the academic average of a school, of acceptances to a school, are actually 3 in 4 of those students who are below kind of the average of acceptances actually are getting into one or more of those kind of very rich schools by just having really solid content in their essay that's well written, right? It doesn't need to be overly creative. And this is a really critical and key point. So how are you going to prove that you're going to be successful? This is where we're going to spend like a decent amount of our time today. And then we'll have a few other things to wrap up and a few questions, can take a few questions as well. So how you're going to prove that you're going to be successful in college and beyond is through your experiences. And these experiences need to relate to 5 traits that colleges are looking for in applicants. The first of those traits, which are the most important, is called drive. So these are students who push themselves to succeed, no matter how long the odds. They're always coming across challenging or difficult situations and always getting through them and coming out a better person as a result of their own actions. So in other words, they're not passively sitting there letting things happen to them, but they're actually like taking action and moving stuff forward, and they're learning something about themselves. They're improving their skills. They're improving how they're viewing themselves and the world, and how they're viewing others around them, okay? So that's really important. And students who are driven are always going to be more likely to be successful in college and beyond, because whenever they're coming across a challenging situation in college or in life, they're going to push through and get to the other side and come out a better person and really make an impact on the world. So the second trait is intellectual curiosity. So these are students who love to learn just for the fun of it, basically in their free time, to gain a deeper understanding of certain subjects, topics in which you're interested in. So I'll give you an example here. I had no idea that I should be writing about intellectual curiosity on my admissions essays. When I was applying to college, I actually took, and this was like very early days of the internet, so it wasn't like you could just learn anything on the internet. I took 2 advanced placement courses without actually taking the course at my school, because my school didn't offer those courses, all right? I did very well on those exams. That was normal for me, right? It was perfectly normal for me to just do that. And yet, that's something that is not normal for most other applicants, even to top universities. And I didn't think about writing about that on my applications. It was clearly not included on my Stanford or my Princeton applications. But it happened to show up on my MIT application when I read my interviewer notes. There was like 5 to 10 sentences of notes that my, not my interviewer, but my admissions reader made. And one of those sentences was related to me kind of self-studying for these advanced placement exams. And that was because it just happened to come up in my interview. If it hadn't come up in my interview, maybe I wouldn't have gotten it, right? I didn't really talk about my intellectual curiosity in a significant way on my application. Yet this is one of the most important things, because students who love to learn are going to be more successful when they're in college and also throughout life, because you have to keep learning basically throughout your life. The third is initiative. So these are students who are really entrepreneurial and not really willing to accept the status quo. They're always thinking of ways to improve whatever you're working on, or kind of whatever group of people that you're involved with. You're always kind of identifying opportunities to improve, and you're taking action to actually improve it, okay? So a lot of this has to do with leadership, entrepreneurship, etc. You don't have to have a formal leadership role, but it's really about taking the initiative. The fourth is contribution. So these are kind of situations where, no matter what group of people you're a part of, whether or not it's your community, your school, your organizations, a peer group, that group is better as a result of your involvement and your specific actions. Right? So we talked before about how colleges are trying to build a well-rounded class, a well-rounded community of people that positively contribute to it. So people that have these contribution trait are very compelling to colleges, because they also know that if you're going to be a contributor in life, you're going to be more successful in life as well. So we often find that a lot of students also don't know, for like initiative or contribution, how to write about that in their applications, or they leave different things out that could be really compelling about them because it's normal for those students to do these things, but it's actually not normal for a typical applicant. So a good question to ask yourself to identify experiences that you had associated with these traits are to imagine a group of people that you're a part of, and then imagine you were never there. How would that group have been different, right? This will help you identify kind of your unique impact on any group of people you're a part of, or taking the initiative or an organization that you're a part of where you're actually like moving something forward and getting there. The final of the 5 traits is diversity of experiences. So schools are looking to build a well-rounded class of people with different life experiences and different ways of thinking about the world, right? Because that adds unique perspectives to the student body, and students can actually learn from themselves, from each other, which is really important kind of in the admissions process. And in the, not just the admissions process, but actually what schools are trying to accomplish. So if you think about it, they don't want to add, if you have 1,000 students in your student body, you don't want to necessarily take 1,000 students who are all going to major in finance and want to work on Wall Street, right? Because that doesn't enable a school to have impact on a lot of different parts of the world. And therefore, they want to actually take people who are interested in a lot of different things, especially that fit well with what their school is trying to accomplish or the strengths of their particular school. So this is really important, these 5 traits. And one thing to just kind of think about is a lot of times we get questions from people on, okay, what's a great topic to write about or not a great topic to write about? And the answer is any topic can be really compelling, provided that it relates to one or more of these 5 traits, the experiences you're writing about. So for example, oftentimes we see a lot of essays around like athletics, band, theater, those types of things that are not that compelling because the experiences don't prove that their students going to be successful in college and beyond. However, you can, an athletics essay might be, I was so tired I had to dig down deep to score the game-winning goal. Well, that's not that interesting. However, if the essay is actually about, how you improved your skills kind of on your own, practicing for hours a day, kind of dissecting videos on YouTube of, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, right, mimicking some of their moves, and it just so happened that you broke out one of those moves at a critical moment of the game and scored the game-winning goal. That's a compelling essay because that actually shows drive and intellectual curiosity kind of in a significant way. And it actually shows that what you did actually had an impact, right? It actually made you a better player, right? So you can write about anything, but it really needs to kind of relate to these 5 specific traits. All right, a couple things to just keep in mind. One is college essays don't have to be hard, right? They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be creative. They don't have to be philosophical. What really matters is your content, and you have to be able to present those experiences in your content in a very clear way, okay? And the second is don't procrastinate. Get started now if you have not done so. Because the number one, we often find a lot of students are waiting till the last minute. We find that the number one reason why students procrastinate is because they don't know where to start. Right? They're trying to seek out those metaphors and analogies, whereas really what you need to do is identify contents related to these 5 traits. The third is being a good writer is not enough. So we often find, as I've said before, many students are applying to the same they're self-selecting where they're applying based off their GPA, test scores, that sort of thing. So a lot of times student writing abilities may be relatively similar across applicants. However, what really matters is the content of what you're writing about, and how does that actually relate to what colleges are looking for, and your personal brand, right? Your strengths that you're trying to show to the colleges. And so that is something that we really focus on working with students with. You want to make sure you're actually getting feedback on what you're writing about. This is really critical. And not just surface level feedback on like grammar, but actually feedback on the content and structure of the essays. So when we provide feedback on essays, like a first draft of a common application essay, we'll get over 700 words of feedback on how to improve the content and structure of the essay, for a 650-word essay, right? We actually provide more feedback than the actual length of the essay, and we dramatically improve student abilities and student outcomes as a result of that. So you want to make sure that you're getting really good feedback, not just surface level feedback on grammar, but actually people reading through your essay with an eye to what colleges are actually looking for. And then finally, you don't need to be spending a ton of time on this, right? You need to be smart about how you're working, and you want to actually get feedback at strategic times from people who know what they're doing, right? From your teachers, from your counselors, from writing coaches, that sort of thing. And when you do that, you can write a quick first draft of an essay, you can get feedback on it and go through that process, and you can actually spend maybe 6 to 8 hours total on your entire common application essay and be done, right? And maybe 1 or 2 hours each on your supplements and be done. Whereas we often find many students that are spending 10, 20, 30 plus hours on a common application essay because they're not necessarily kind of leveraging the resources that they need to, or they're thinking about it in too much depth, right? What really matters is your content and your experiences, not the exact specific word that you're using here or there throughout the essay. So just a little bit about prompt, and then we'll take a question or two, wrap up. So we were founded in 2014. Our mission is to make students better writers. We do a lot of work with college admissions essays. We're the #1 provider of feedback on college admissions essays in the world because it's one of the best times to improve student writing abilities, because you care enough to get feedback on your essay and to act on it. We have a very elite network of writing coaches. We accept less than 2% of thousands of applicants that we get. We have hundreds of high school counselors that actually recommend our services and our support to their students. And we've already supported thousands of students this year on essays alone. But it's not too late to actually get started. We have some people that show up the day before the deadline even. You can work with us in 2 ways. We have packages that are basically kind of all-inclusive, single price. You get an assigned writing coach. We kind of guide you through the entire process from brainstorming to doing drafts of your essays across everything that you need to do. But you can also buy individual reviews as well, which are generally $75 per review. So what I'd like for you all to do right now, and then I'll take some questions, is you can actually get a free essay planning session with our writing coaches. I encourage you to take advantage of it, even if you don't want to get feedback on your essays from our coaches. And you can talk one-on-one with the prompt team member about what do you actually need to do in the essay process. If you go to prompt.com/poets&quants, once again, that's prompt.com/poets&quants. I'll drop that into the chat as well. And then the first 25 people who are actually doing that and sign up can actually get also a free essay review, or you can get $100 off one of our essay coaching packages. So I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that. And I'll now kind of pause and take some questions from the audience. I said I think we only have like a minute or 2 left, but why not? All right, and I have to stop sharing my screen in order to do that. Yeah, so COVID-19 question. This is very good. I am actually going to send a link out right now to my blog on actually how to write this particular essay. I estimate like 75 to 80% of kids should actually write this essay, but we don't have a lot of time right now. So I'm going to go ahead and, as I said, just kind of drop that into the chat. You all may want to just take a quick look at that blog post, which may be helpful. So there's a good question here. Does the Common App essay have to end with a positive impact or success that the student may have had, or introspection, self-realization, and thinking about changing passion moving forward? So everything that I look at is basically, does what the student has written about actually relate to the 5 traits and prove that they're going to be successful in college and beyond, right? So if it's a situation that you went through that was a very trying time and you didn't actually take actions as a result of that, and you just kind of learned something about yourself through it, it may not work, right? So it may not show that you're driven, intellectually curious, took the initiative, are a contributor, or are related to diversity of experiences. Now, if you are identifying those situations, then sure, go for it. You know, and you can kind of talk about that introspection at the end. But we often find that a lot of students will write about that kind of essay, have some introspection at the end, but it leaves me thinking, so what? So like, how did they actually take what they learned about themselves and put that into practice in some way, shape, or form? We often find that with students that go through community service experiences where they say, oh, great, like I went through this community service experience, I learned a lot about myself and that I really need to care about other people. And guess what? That experience was 2 years ago and they haven't really done anything since then, right? That's not that interesting because it doesn't prove to me that you actually learned something, that you actually went and did something as a result of what you learned. Okay, next up, real quick, and then we'll wrap up. Son is currently in 11th grade, right? So the answer to this is you should not really start working on your essays, at least writing them, until really the summer before your senior year. We recommend getting started in like the June, July timeframe. However, it's really important to understand what these 5 traits are, what the purpose of the college application is, so you can start identifying things that you can actually do to improve the experiences that you've had that can now showcase these traits actually in your essays. So you can actually use this opportunity to identify what should you actually be doing over the next year that can make your application significantly stronger. Yeah, and we have a question here. Yeah, an individual session through prompt can be touching up the essay. What I will say is if you already have a draft of an essay, you go to prompt.com, you create an account, you get one review of your essay, and we will kind of go through it in a lot of depth to actually talk through like the content and the structure, look at it on a sentence level basis as well. We often find that many students who are coming to us that think they have like a final polished essay still have significant opportunity to improve the content and structure of their essay. So I highly recommend doing that. If you already have a draft of your essay for a common application essay or a supplemental essay, you don't actually have to be at the beginning of the process. You can already have your essay. You can already think it's done. You just want a second opinion. You can easily get feedback from our team. You know, we're reviewing hundreds of essays a day right now. All right. Yep. All you have to do is go to prompt.com. Let me put that back up on the screen again. And we actually need to wrap up because I'm already over by a couple of minutes and I don't want to get in trouble for the next session who are friends of mine that are running it. And so I'm just going to put up this, you know, once again, go to prompt.com/poets&quants. That's how you can sign up and get a free, I said first 25 signups through there and create an account or signing up for an essay planning session. We'll get a free essay review. So there's an opportunity to actually select a time to get a free essay planning session, to talk with one of the prompt team members about where you're at in the essay process. And then we can kind of point you in the direction of, hey, we recommend you just get some single reviews here or there, or maybe you might need a package, or you might not choose to work with us. That's totally fine too. And you can just take the information and go. We also have an opportunity where we work with hundreds of students that are kind of have need-based or financial needs, and we have certain special programs for them that you can reach out to us as well. You know, just go ahead and sign up for an account, sign up for that essay planning session, and go ahead and get started. All right. So as I said, prompt.com/poets&quants, and there will be probably an email that's sent out tomorrow as well that will have that link. But as I recommend, given the number of people on this webinar, go ahead and do that now if you can. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Any questions that you have or you didn't get answered today, feel free to sign up for one of those essay planning sessions. We have a bunch of awesome team members. Usually you're talking with one of our essay coaches actually as well when you're signing up for those sessions, and they can walk you through the entire process and answer any specific questions that you have specifically related to you or your student. All right, thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.